That the kids use, so they repeat what you say. Ronan has one of those. Yes. But we can't tell because it's not legal. No, no, this one, it looks like a dog with a beak. I've never seen a rooster like that. It looks like a dog. It's white, and it looks like it has fur. But no, wait, they're feathers, but fur. It looks like it has fur, but it's no, it's the way. Either way she has it, it's kind of great. I love it. It's, Rabindranath Tagore, yeah. It's an extinguishing the light. It's putting out the lamp because the dawn has come. Yes, 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 yes. You're welcome. Okay, so memory and forgetting. Am I forgetting anything? Me neither, I forgot. So, number one, Shelley, why don't you read for us, please? This is Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishnayot 10, 11, and 12 that I put them together. This just really, they all talk about the same thing.
Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 students.
Remember, we talked about that last
yes,
week.
We did.
Right? So we are going to expand a little bit on that.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Haranos.
Hirkanos.
He was Greek.
Doesn't sound Greek? Absolutely. He is, yeah.
Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah. Rabbi Yossi the Kohen. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. He would recount their phrases. Praises, excuse me. I'm really having trouble tonight. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos is a pit covered in cement that does not lose a drop. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah, happy is the one who gave birth to him. Rabbi Yossi, the priest, is pious. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel fears sin. And Rabbi Elazar ben Aricha is an ever-strengthening fountain. He, Rabbanan Yochanan ben Zakkai, used to say, if all the sages of Israel were on one side of a balanced scale, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos were on the other side, he, Rabbi Eliezer, would outweigh them all.
Okay.
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Okay. So last time we talked about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and we didn't go in details into his 5 disciples. Okay? So today we are going to start with that, reading who was each one of these 5 students, because they shine in a different way. Just a little spoiler, because I didn't even write it here. Rabbi Eliezer was famous because he was a troublemaker at one point. He is the one who challenged the Sanhedrin. Remember the episode of the kosher oven? That he started to bring miracles to prove that he was right. And then the rabbi said God is not in heaven because the Torah was already revealed. We're going to read that a little bit later. But Rabbi Eliezer, at the end, he was excommunicated because of his stubbornness.
These are some pretty critical descriptions of his opinion of these people.
We'll see.
Okay.
Let's read about who was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanos. Okay? A little description. Let me read this one. A second generation Tana. That means 2 generations after the Mishnah started to be written. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanos entered adulthood unlettered and ignorant. Okay? Which mirror pretty much what happened with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the same way. He was a total ignorant up to his 40s. And then he was in love with a girl, and he wanted to be somebody. And he decided to be a rabbi. And then when he finally came back to claim his girl, he actually looked at all his students and said, I don't have enough students. So he went back until he had even more students. He was more important than he came back. But this one was almost the same. He was an ignorant, okay? But in his 20s, he decided, against his father's wishes, to begin studying Torah and fled to the academy of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in Jerusalem. He was successful at his studies and became an accomplished scholar. Actually, his father dishonors him. He was dishonored because he became a rabbi, and the father said, if you do that, you're cut off. And actually, his father he came to see him in Jerusalem. And when he saw that he was one of the greatest scholars of that generation, the father repented and decided to give all his inheritance to him. No, but not in the will. Said, it's everything for you, nothing for your brothers, because I realize that you are right and all the others are wrong. And Rabbi Eliezer said, no. Thank you, but no. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he married or not. We never read about that, many of the rabbis. 20. Rabbi Eliezer in his 20s. But you can say, this Rabbi Eliezer Ben Yerkanos, you can tell right away that his father was assimilated Jew. Okay? Okay.
We never know much about the wives.
No.
For the most part.
No. Okay, and even before the destruction of the temple, he was considered one of the great of the generation. He was among the pallbearers who carried Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to his meeting with Vespasian. Remember that he had to fake his death. After the fall of Jerusalem, he moved along with the Sanhedrin to Yavne, because that was the condition. Vespasian said, I will spare you and all the scholars, and you can go to the city of Yavne and start a new life there. He played a major role in his activities as a member of the delegation to Rome to negotiate on Jewish issues. So he was a very good negotiator. Second, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah. Who was this one? He was a Levite. Rabbi Yeshua served as one of the choir members in the temple. Sometimes we forget that that's what Levites used to do. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who ordained him, also taught him the Kabbalistic areas of Torah. Aha. After the death of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Gamliel assumed the position of Nasi, which is the president of the Beit Din, with Rabbi Yehoshua serving as Av Beit Din. Okay, the head of the Beit Din and also known as vice president of the Sanhedrin. An accomplished linguist and mathematician, he acted as a spokesman for the Jewish people in the halls of the government. On his way to Rome to lobby against anti-Jewish edicts, he visited Alexandria and Athens. So he traveled a lot for people in those days. Aware of the political realities of the time, he sought to promote peaceful coexistence with the Roman government. When Hadrian effectively reneged on the promise he had made to allow the Jews to rebuild the temple, because Hadrian basically said, yes, you can build a temple, but in a different, totally unacceptable location. In other words, he said, you can do it outside Jerusalem. I said, no, that's non-negotiable. Rabbi Yeshua counseled against civilian revolt. Although Rabbi Yeshua was physically unimpressive and in constant poverty, you see, Rabbi Eliezer was the opposite, because when he rejected the inheritance, basically what he rejected was the whole inheritance. He said, just give me my portion, which was probably still, I don't want you to give me $800 million. Just give me 200. It's more than you can spend in a lifetime anyway. So Rabbi Eliezer had no money problems. Rabbi Yeshua did. Okay? He was in constant poverty. His opinion on theological and practical matters was solicited even by non-Jewish people. He used these political connections to benefit his fellow Jews. Quite interesting.
So he was a man of the world.
Yes. During the famous debate with Rabbi Eliezer over this is what I was talking before. The famous debate with Rabbi Eliezer over the impure status of the oven of Achnai, he made his famous response to the miracles that Rabbi Eliezer marshaled to prove that the majority opinion was wrong, right? Remember, Rabbi Eliezer was bringing miracle after miracles, and the biggest one was that he moved a carob tree from one place to another magically. He magically made a river flow in the opposite direction. He bent the walls of the academy. Actually, he wanted to bring them down, and then Rabbi Joshua rebuked the walls, so they didn't fall, but neither went back to the straight position.
That's right.
And then finally, Rabbi Eliezer said, if I am right, let it be a divine voice declaring that. And there was a divine voice, it's called a bat call. Bat call. That it said, Rabbi Eliezer is right. It had to sound like that, right? I need a little more echo, but yeah. And Rabbi Joshua said, that doesn't prove anything, because the Torah was revealed so we can understand it. Heaven cannot intervene anymore. Theologically, that was very important, because that was also to ratify the Jewish belief that it cannot be any other prophets coming to change the Torah. That's why we didn't accept any other prophets after the Torah was revealed. Moses was our prophet, and any other prophet that we had, they didn't come to teach us anything new. They just came to remind us what was revealed in the Torah. If there was somebody else coming, said, on the name of God, you have to change what you do, that's unacceptable. Why? Because the Torah was revealed, and that's the way it is. It cannot be anybody else saying, even here, or a voice from heaven saying, you're wrong. You have to change. You need to have a different Torah or whatever. So that voice was rejected, because the rabbis decide. We decide based on the needs of the generation. So, and Rabbi Eliezer was excommunicated after that, because he was a troublemaker. He didn't accept the opinion of the rabbis. Okay, let's go to the next one. Rabbi Yosef the Kohen, the priest. Together with Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yosef studied the esoteric portion of the Torah known as Ma'aseh HaMerkavah, which is a prequel to the Zohar, by the way. Literally the working of the divine chariot, an achievement which greatly pleased their teacher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. His halachic opinion is recorded only once in the Mishnah in Tractate of Eduyot 8. So even though he was a great scholar and great Kabbalist, we only have one opinion of him in the entire Mishnah. It's a Kabbalistic teaching, yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what Kabbalists, Jewish mystics used to study until the Zohar was discovered. And then the Zohar almost like took over and became the most important work of Kabbalah. But there were other, like the people studying the other books of Kabbalah, like Sefer Abahir, and I can't remember some others, other manuscripts on Kabbalah. But the most famous in this day is the Zohar. Okay?
How far back do we think that the Kabbalah went? Or when do we think that Kabbalah began? Because we think of it within the last maybe few centuries. But it goes
technically, back. It goes back to the Middle Ages, formally. But if you believe the traditional rabbis, they would say that it goes all the way back to the revelation of the Torah on Sinai. So basically, there were 3 Torahs revealed on Sinai. Yeah. The written Torah, the oral law, and the Kabbalah. So they supposed to be kept in 3 different states or statuses. The written Torah supposed to be written, so everybody can read it. The oral Torah supposed to be oral, but accessible to everybody. If you know the oral law, I come to you, I ask you, you tell me. And the Kabbalah supposed to be hidden, and it's supposed to be taught one-on-one, and you have to be initiated first, so it's that somebody has to explain to you how it really works. The danger with the Kabbalah is that if you, and there are examples in the Talmud, how you can misunderstand it and believe that this is the only Torah that exists, and the oral law and the written Torah really is just for, it's for the masses. That's for losers. Real people, illuminated people, you should concentrate and study Kabbalah, and that's it. All the things, reading the Torah, learning the mitzvot, the commandments from God, putting on tefillin, putting on talit, that's for losers, for people who need that in order to reach God. With Kabbalah, I have a shortcut. I have a shortcut to reach God. That's not the Jewish approach. Let's open another mic here on the other side, because we are missing some of the commentaries because of no microphone. Done.
So what does the word Kabbalah actually mean?
It's come from lekabel in Hebrew, which means to receive. You will receive that from God. So that's why that's Kabbalah. Okay, and we believe that it was revealed at the same time that God revealed the Torah to Moses. God taught Moses all these secrets. Moses probably taught it to Joshua, one-on-one, right? And Joshua taught that to other people, but that was never recorded. That's the official story. Reality is, it started to flourish in the Middle Ages, when books started to be written and people started to read it, and it was more visible. Okay?
And more accessible.
And more accessible. And now in the 21st century, actually started in the 20th century, it became something that it was taught in the classroom. That's new. Kabbalah was never taught in a classroom. Kabbalah was taught from your rabbi to you after you went through very disciplined studies of the written Torah, the oral Torah, and then when you had this solid foundation, then you're ready to receive the mystical side of Judaism. If you take the shortcut and you go straight to the mystical side of Judaism, no, but the first thing is going to happen, you're going to reject the other two. I've seen it. You go to the Kabbalah Center to study. It's not a place that they teach how to live a Jewish life, fulfilling commandments and everything. It's like they believe that they have a shortcut, a direct connection, that they don't need the other things.
The Hasidic branch of Judaism, are they more?
Who, sorry?
The Hasidic movement?
The Hasidic, they study Kabbalah, yes. They have a mystical approach. Sephardic too. Let's pass the microphone to Eddie. I will do it.
Can Kabbalah be abused? There are certain beliefs that there's magic in there, and I know there are some ultra-Orthodox rabbis in Israel that threaten, a curse of the black candle, or that's a term,
Yes.
or other curses to basically blackmail people into how to vote.
Yeah, and they create amulets and stuff
Yeah.
on the name of Kabbalah.
What's the Hebrew word for lash of fire? There's an expression.
The what?
Lash of fire. There's another.
I don't know.
But apparently there are some curses like. Do you think they actually have these powers, or is it psychologically? If people believe them,
I think if you believe it, you will make it real. Okay, let's move on. Then the next one was Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel. Little is known about this second generation Tanah. He was also a Kohen, and he was the son-in-law of Rabban Gamliel. That's all we know. Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. Okay, this was the famous one. Remember the last week? He was the one who was the favorite, because he's the one who said the most important thing in life is to have a good heart. Right? Remember the story when the rabbi said to his students, go out and come back and tell me what is the most important thing. One said a good friend, the other one said a good neighbor, the other one said a good eye, the other one said to be able to see consequences of your actions. And then Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach said, no, the most important thing is a good heart. And the teacher said, aha, I like his words better than all the other words, because his words actually contain all the others. So this was Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. But as we're going to see, it's not a happy ending with this guy. You'll see. This is funny. Please don't laugh. An intellectual giant in both the revealed and hidden areas of the Torah, so he knew everything, right? Torah, Talmud, Kabbalah, everything. Rabbi Eliezer was a favorite of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Of all the disciples, He was the one able to comfort his teacher upon the death of Rabbi Yochanan's son. Okay? Interestingly, little of his Torah has come down to us, except the thing that the heart is the most important thing. Upon the death of his teacher, he, like his colleagues, did not remain with the academy at Yavne. Upon the urging of his wife, he moved instead to Emmaus, a vacation resort famous for his fine cuisine and refreshing baths, thinking that his colleagues will follow him. They did not come, and he found himself alone and without the intellectual ferment necessary for growth. The Talmud reports that he completely forgot his learning to the extent that he was unable to read from a Torah scroll. Sounds like a modern Jew. They go to Hebrew school, they have a great bar mitzvah, great grades, and then they forget everything. By the time they get married, they don't even know how to read Torah anymore. So look, and he was such a talent. And then later in life, he forgot everything. Okay, so let's start reading some of the things that we have to know about this, about remembering your studies. Okay, who wants to read here? Who has a microphone today? Okay. Let me put this muted. Here. Welcome.
One only remembers things which made a deep impression on him when he experienced them. I remember an old man in our town of Radin who was able to describe in vivid detail the visit of Tsar Nikolai, which had occurred over 70 years ago. The old man described precisely the royal carriage and the majestic horses, the decorative trim around the edges of the wagon driver's uniform, and he even portrayed the hand movements of the driver as he held the reins. Yet, that same elderly gentleman could not describe many things he had seen or heard maybe a day or two earlier. Only those things that have great significance and impact at the time leave an indelible impression upon us. Our Eliezer
Rabbi, that's Rabbi, sorry. Rabbi Eliezer.
Yeah, Ben Hyrcanos. Hyrcanos was so excited and captivated by the words of Torah, and their impact was of such intensity that he never forgot them. And
okay. So here we understand a little bit more of his, why he remembered everything that he studied. Remember how he started, right? He knew nothing. And he was thirsty and hungry for Judaism and Torah. So perhaps because that was his motivation to study, he never forgot a word what he learned. He was famous for that. Remember that his teacher described him as a pit that it was covered with cement. Like you keep everything in there. Nothing escapes. Nothing escapes. Okay? Let's read the number 8. This is kind of funny. You see, Rabbi has sense of humor as well.
I do not really have a good memory, but it would be a shame for me to forget something that I had learned with such great effort. Rabbi Moses Schreiber,
the Khatam Sofer. I think it's kind of funny what he said. He doesn't have a good memory, but I can't forget. I don't want to forget something that took me so long to learn. It's that's what I put it. That was his nickname. He was known as the Khatam Sofer. That's what it means. Okay, let's keep reading about Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanos. Some more comments about him. Text 9.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanos. In Mishnah times, water was stored in cisterns dug into the earth, which served the family reservoirs. In order to keep the water clean and prevent it from being absorbed into the ground, the cisterns were cemented. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanos is compared to a cemented cistern because of its flawless capacity to remember all he had learned. He never forgot anything, not even a drop.
That's
Rabbi
what-
Shlomo Yitzhaki Rashi.
That's the famous Rashi. That's one of the greatest commentators, and he was also an excellent winemaker. He had a vineyard in Italy, Italian wine. Wow, kosher. Yes. Now let's read what the Midrash said about Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanos. So text 10. Let's pass the microphone to Eddie, maybe. He has his own. That's okay.
Although a cemented cistern retains all its contents, it also has certain drawbacks. Its water generally is stale and not very refreshing. Unlike a spring, it does not release any new waters. In these aspects, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanos did not resemble a cemented cistern. His Torah thoughts were always refreshing, and his emphasis and constant review and mastery of large amounts of material did not preclude an ability to generate new ideas.
Yeah, but the problem is that now we have a contradiction because his teacher used a very specific image. Now the Midrash, when Midrash written about Pirkei Avot, it said, well, so how can you explain that the guy was also a creative mind? If he was just, because the cistern is something that doesn't give you anything new, only what it contains. So it seems to be a little bit of a contradiction here. But let's see how the rabbis understand this little contradiction. Alain, you want to read the next one? You have to unmute the mic. Unmute it. It's muted. You know when the light is red?
This shows Rabbi Eliezer's self-control is in repenting only what he had heard from his teachers. All his own idea is kept to himself. In this way, he was like a cement cistern which loses not a drop.
Okay, so we're saying, actually, even when it looks like it was something new, it wasn't something new, it was something that he learned before. So he was just repeating things that he learned in the past. Rashi, for example, was like that. Rashi never wrote anything that came from his own understanding. He was just repeating all what he learned from his teachers. That was one of his characteristics, and he's famous for that. And it looks like this Rabbi Eliezer was the same.
Did they think that it was not appropriate to allow new thoughts and interpretations into what was established thinking and learning?
Yeah, it was, but he was famous for, sometimes what happens is when you have such a great understanding and knowledge of so many things, that you present something that sounds new, but all what you're doing is connecting the dots of things that you already know and presented it in a form that people who don't have that knowledge, don't have access to that knowledge, they feel that it's something new, but there is not something new, something that you already knew from your teachers.
So on the one hand, it's all-encompassing, but it doesn't allow for anything
Okay,
new,
we
a
need-
new interpretation or understanding.
Let's give you the microphone, because then we can't repeat what you said.
Okay. So on the one hand, their understanding and their teaching is all-encompassing, but on the other hand, it doesn't allow for any new understanding or new interpretation or understanding.
Yeah, but according to this, he didn't bring new interpretations. He brought old interpretations that they were not known by other people, so it sounded like new.
Did they discourage new interpretations and understanding? In other words,
No, it's not that they
this is what
discouraged.
is written, this is all there is nothing else?
So, as we are going to see, that was, for example, Rabbi Eleazar, the last one.
Okay.
That was what he was doing. He was famous for finding new interpretations. Sometimes you do find new things, and then you find the argument to support
Yes,
your idea.
right.
It's not easy
Yeah.
to bring something new, because then you have to go and find your support.
There's lots of conflict. Yeah. Okay.
Which,
Thank you.
but in this case, he has such huge understanding and knowledge that he could find whatever he needed within his toolbox. He didn't have to create a new tool. He had all the tools he needed in his box.
So what's the nuance between research, interpretation?
Hold on. Repeat the answer. Okay. Okay, let's move on. The next one. Text 12.
The sages teaching that Rabbi Eliezer tough words of Torah that no ear had ever heard before, which seemed to contradict the statement that he taught only that which he heard from his teachers. In fact, however, there is no contradiction. A real disciple does not merely parrot his mentors. He repeats that what he knows his teacher would say about any given subject. Having mastered the teacher's thought patterns, he can independently replicate his conclusion.
Okay, this is another way of understanding. When it's not just about an encyclopedic knowledge, but you learn how your teachers think, how they process the information, and you can replicate that way. It's still not you. It's still not you talking. You are.
Still doesn't allow for anything new. It's just a restatement and a new interpretation and understanding of what was already there.
Yeah.
So like we would have said in Yiddish, steht geschrieben, that this is the way it's written.
Yeah, but if you don't know,
It's closed.
but it could sound like something new, but it's not. It's not. It's repeating.
Well, yes, of course. To someone who didn't understand it before, it would sound new.
Okay, so number 13. I will take this one.
But weren't there any attempts to critically analyze and disagree with the teachings once you've mastered them? I mean, there are a lot of debates in the Talmud, I guess mostly in the Gemara, that,
Yeah, but even in those debates, most of the time, actually all the time, the rabbis will say, my opinion is, most of the paragraph in the Talmud starts, said Rabbi so-and-so in the name of Rabbi so-and-so. Why do we always start that way? Because basically the rabbis will say, it's not me, it's not my opinion, I didn't come out with this. This is the way I was taught.
some people must have come up with new ideas. I mean, Hillel thought up of the
idea
of
Rabbi
the
Akiva.
proswell himself, didn't
Rabbi
he?
Akiva, when the Talmud brings the episode of the two men in the desert with only one bottle of water. Remember, there was 2 months in the desert, only one bottle of water, and they knew for a fact that if they shared the water, they would both die. If only one drinks the water, that person can reach civilization and the other will die. What do? So the Talmud says, the law followed the opinion of Rabbi Ben Petora, who said they should both share the water and they should both die. Until Rabbi Akiva came and he taught the owner of the water drinks it and save his life. Why? Because your life takes precedence and he brings proof from the Torah.
I would have thought that he should give it to the other person because when you lay down your life for someone,
No, because you cannot kill yourself.
I just thought.
But the Talmud said that the opinion was one way until Rabbi Akiva came and he presented a different opinion and everybody said, makes sense. And they took that opinion. So it was something new. Was he repeating something that he learned or something he discovered? I don't know. But yes, there were new things. There were novel interpretations. At the end, you can always argue that it's never really something new because you're bringing proofs from the Torah. You're never saying that you're doing something new because you thought that it's the best. No, you have to bring proof. And proof is either a verse from the Torah and another opinion from another rabbi, and then you connect the dots and you present a new opinion. But it's not really new. You're basing it a different thing that it was already there, but nobody really noticed it before. You're not creating something new, you're discovering something that it was always there, but it wasn't visible.
Excuse me. Am I wrong?
Yes. Let's move on.
Okay, thank you. You can't, if you want create a new argument, you base your argument on Rabbi so and so, and you have to prove it. Or sometimes, I think they create midrash. They invent a story to justify their opinion.
No, you cannot base an opinion in the midrash.
Okay.
Unless what is called the midrash halacha, law, but it's a different kind of thing. Yeah. The opinions were based on precedents or verses or teachings from previous generation. If you're in the Talmud and the Mishnah said something, you can always bring what is called the Baraita. Okay, or the Tosafot. They were all the things that they were Mishnah-like text that they didn't make it to the Mishnah. And you can bring one of those as an argument. But it was also taught to you by somebody else before. Where did it start? More likely somebody created it at one point. Right? Because otherwise, how can you explain that there is contradiction between one Mishnah and one Baraita? It should be they're saying the same. Okay? Very good. Let's read about text 14, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah. Let's read a little bit about him, about Rabbi Yeshua. This is what the guy who challenged Rabbi Eliezer with the episode of the oven. Let's go back to Shelley.
Thank you. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah. When his mother was pregnant with him, she would go every day to all the study halls of the city and ask the Torah scholars to pray that her child would grow up to be a scholar. After he was born, his mother would take his crib to the study hall so that his ears would be filled exclusively with the words, got to turn a page here. So that his ears would be filled exclusively with Torah. Because his mother was largely responsible for the great person that he grew to be, the Mishnah says, praiseworthy is she who bore him. And that also is Rashi.
Yeah, so that was the praise. It was kind of odd, right? The first one, the rabbis say, such a great scholar. He never forgot anything that he learned. And the second one, he had a great mother.
And today we'd call her a helicopter mother.
Yeah, you see, is that a praise? According to Rashi, it said yes. Yes. It is a praise. In the sense that he was lucky to have a mother like that, which was very different from the father of Rabbi Eliezer, right?
That's right.
The Rabbi Eliezer said, "Don't you dare becoming a rabbi."
Polar opposites.
Yeah. What kind of profession is that for a Jewish boy? That's a joke. If they want to be a rabbi, what kind of profession is that for a Jewish boy? But in this case, it was all the opposite. He was pushed to be a rabbi from the crib, and he happened to excel. Because sometimes what happens is if somebody brings you to shul every week, two things could happen. You love it, or you hate it. You get shul out.
Pushed.
But I know cases of both. I mean,
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between pushing and exposing.
Yeah. So basically, it is a great thing what his mother did for him, and then by being a rabbi, he is honoring her. Let's go to the next one. Let's keep going, please. Rabbi Yosef the Kohen, the priest.
Rabbi Yosef the Kohen.
He was defined as a Chassid.
The term Chassid.
Let's remember what he said about this. Okay, Rabbi Yosef the priest is pious. But if you see in Hebrew, Mateh Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah Ashrei Yoladato, Rabbi Yosef Kohen Chassid.
Yes.
Chassid.
And it's a word we still use today.
Yeah, the Hasidim.
The term Hasid indicates one who is a model of ethical and moral perfection. There are two definitions of chassid. One who performs all his activities, even mundane ones, for the sake of heaven, channeling all his actions into his service of God. And one who, in the spirit of compromise, forgoes money and entitlements in business.
Okay.
And this is the Haganon Harav Gershon Shol Yom Tov Lipman ben Natan Halevi Heller.
Okay, that's his opinion. And that's what being a chassid. Yes. And he was a chassid. He was a pious man. That was his most famous characteristic.
Don't we often also say that a chassid is a learned man as opposed to pious? There being a slight difference between the two in
No.
understandings?
I don't know.
Okay.
A chassid is somebody who is pious. Of course, the chassidim, they say you have a chassid, but then you have the tzaddik.
That's right.
That is a level up from chassid.
So the tzaddik, in the way I learned, is really the learned man.
So in the Hasidic world in these days, if you belong to the Hasidic movement, you're a Hasid, pious. But that's not all what it is. You can be one level above that, then you can be a tzaddik, a righteous person, which looks. It's beyond the Hasid. The Hasid is for everybody. Tzaddik is once in a generation. One person could become. It's not for everybody to become a tzaddik. That level is a level of perfection that the Hasid doesn't have. It's not just about the intention. It's about the way you live your life. So perfect that you're a tzaddik. In those days, they didn't have Hasid and tzaddik. I guess when his rabbi was praising him, he meant a tzaddik. It's just the example of a good chassid.
Yeah.
That's what this rabbi was. Yes, John.
Who's the
I can hear you.
who decides who is a chassid and who is a tzaddik? Is it the community? Is it the rabbis? Is it?
At the beginning is the community. There's a rabbi who is famous because he's a scholar, because he's a good person, because he's a miracle worker. And his students consider him to be their tzaddik, or the Rabbi, and they gather around him. The problem is, after that, they create the dynasty. A dynasty. And then it's like royalty.
That's right.
The next tzaddik is the son of a tzaddik. And then it's also a son of a son of a tzaddik, and then then you want to marry into the family, and then. Yeah. Well, what happened with Lubavitch? The last Rebbe has no sons. In fact, he had no children. So they have not tzaddik anymore. Lubavitch. Lots of Hasidim. Chabad, but there is no tzaddik anymore. Like the Rebbe.
But they still quote the Rebbe.
The Rebbe Schneerson, he was the last one.
Yes, but they still quote him.
The Rebbe, yeah.
Yeah.
But after Schneerson, there was no other tzaddik.
In some quarters, he's
How is
almost.
the Lubavitch movement governed? Do they have their own Beit Din or council? Or
I don't know. I have no idea how they do it in these days. Probably, I don't know. Okay?
It's a good question.
So the next one will be Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel. Remember the praise for him? No, but if you read the Mishnah, page number 1, you will say, Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel fears sin. That's the praise to him. Oh, my student, Rabbi Shimon, he is so good that he fears sin. What did he mean, his teacher, with that praise? Let's read it on text 17. I will read this one. Rabbi Shimon will adopt stringencies in his personal behavior, avoiding even things that they were permitted out of fear of transgression. He was an ultra religious man, creating extra restrictions God forbid, he will transgress. He will put extra stringencies on his life. You see in the next text, it will say, simple fear, this is the Rambam, Maimonides talking. So simple fear of sin can be achieved by ignorant people. Why? Because it's always easier to say no. As I remember one Patrick Eleazar said, any idiot can say no. The easier thing.
You could say
right?
yes, too.
To be lenient, you have to be a learned person. To know how much
Learn
you
to
can
say
stretch a
yes.
situation before you violate the law. You have to be a scholar. If you're not a scholar, the safest thing to say is, nope, I won't do it because I don't know, maybe I will make it wrong and I will, no. An idiot can say no. So he said, since simple fear of sin can be achieved by ignorant people, it will seem to be a rather faint praise to say that Shimon ben Netanel was one who fears sin. So Maimonides says, to my understanding, the term ira chet, is the original Hebrew use, right? Indicates alacrity, the active and energetic pursuit of the proper path, and refraining from any type of negative behavior. To find something positive about things. The thing is, sometimes we get trapped and confused by translation. Maimonides is trying to find a different interpretation of the words ira. Okay? And finally, the
But
last
Rabbi,
one.
even that in itself is very limiting, isn't it?
What is?
To live your life as though you were in fear of transgressing or sin is quite limiting.
No, but unless it's not
almost,
limiting if
we
you
would
live
call
it-
it OCD in modern
yeah.
language.
Yeah, it could be lead like that, but it also Maimonides is trying to understand that this was a man who was always trying to do the right thing,
Strict adherence to Torah.
always to do the right thing.
Okay.
He didn't want to disappoint people, or he didn't want to disappoint God. Let's put it that way. The right way to understand the fear of heaven is the fear of disappointing heaven.
This concept actually exists from the beginning in the Torah even. It's, it says proper path, but it's walk in the paths of righteousness. Walking in the paths of righteousness is the ultimate way of fearing sin.
Yeah. Noah did it when he walked with God. Abraham did it even though God has to push him to do that, right? When God called Abraham, he said, walk before me faithfully and be righteous. Actually, he said, be perfect. By the way, do you know that that's how we understand circumcision. God said to Abraham, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I said, walk before me faithfully and be perfect. And immediately after said, circumcise yourself. That the understanding that part of the body by being removed make him spiritually perfect. Let's understand the act of circumcision. Okay, let's read a little bit about Rabbi Eleazar ben Adach. Okay, when his penetrating mind and broad understanding, Rabbi Eleazar ben Adach was able to formulate new ideas and interpretations in the Torah. He was the opposite from Eleazar. From Eliezer. He was the opposite from Eliezer. Eliezer was a cistern, right?
Oh, yes.
This guy was a creative force. He was Mozart. Let's put it that way. Have you ever seen the movie Amadeus?
Yes.
Like the guy, he couldn't avoid it. He had these ideas and he would just write them on paper with no mistakes. But it was all these new things and they were brilliant. And it's a gift. Remember the other guy, Salieri, he was a scholar, great teacher, great musician, great author, and he was sweating and working hard to write a note. And then this brat called Mozart, he just comes and writes like it's nothing. And this was Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach. And then the good life actually ruined him. He moved to a place of comfort and he forgot his Torah. Okay? Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach was able to formulate interpretation of the Torah. Unlike Rabbi Eliezer, who repeated only what he has been taught, Rabbi Eliezer applied creative thinking to his learning. Wow. Yeah. Now, in text 20, we're going to see that the Midrash is trying to compare the two, because those are actually the ones who feel like opposite poles. Right? Mm-hmm. And then Midrash Shmuel will say the intensity of a spring diminishes as its waters move outwards. Right? Therefore, a spring which grows constantly stronger is a natural phenomenon. That's the way his master defined him. Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach possessed such a rare intellectual ability. He was always constantly flowing. It wasn't like one-time shot. It was like every day. That was his personality. That was his talent. Okay? So it's interesting and how, and this is how it links to the topic for today. I believe what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is explaining, what he's talking about his 5 students, in how each one of them find different ways to remember what they studied. One, memorize everything. The other one, he did it because he was pushed to do it by his mother. The other one because he was afraid of making mistakes. So he wouldn't forget anything because he was afraid. God forbid I forget something, and then if I forget it, I will make a mistake. And that's terrible. The other one, he was a Chassid. His motivation to remember is to be a good, to be a pious person. And the last one, when he just remembered. It came naturally to him. Some people of these students, he had to create ways to remember or to motivate themselves in a special way to remember. Rabbi Eliezer, he just had it. Eddie, do you have a microphone?
Before the Mishnah was redacted, did the Tanaim actually have to memorize everything to pass down orally, or did the scholars have notes, that they didn't publish, but did they have notes?
Yeah, they have notes, but everything was orally. Yeah, that was the oral law.
But did they have written notes to help their memory? I mean, you can't.
Probably, but I don't know. We don't know, because the things didn't survive.
And when the Sanhedrin was in existence before the temple was destroyed, weren't all the rulings and the judicial decisions written down? I mean, of course, regrettably, all the records were lost, but wouldn't all the legal rulings have been written down?
Probably. I don't know if they were preserved. I don't remember that.
Well, unfortunately, we'll probably never know because the temple was destroyed. But
my legs. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's move on to the next Mishnah for tonight. Avot 5:15. Okay, more about students. Who wants to read this one? Kelly, you have the mic there. So let's.
There are 4 temperaments amongst students: quick to understand and quick to forget. His gain is canceled by his loss. A student who is slow to understand and slow to forget. His loss is canceled by his gain. A student who is quick to understand and slow to forget, he is a sage. A student who is slow to understand and quick to forget, that is a bad portion.
What kind of student was you?
Text 22. Text 22. Okay, this is a...
Just for that, Alan, you're going to have to read the next part.
It's a long one.
I'll read it if you like.
It's a long one. The microphone, yeah. But it's sorry. The next couple of texts are a little long, but are very, very, very insightful, because they are for modern rabbis. So that's why it's a little longer. Remember, I believe that the old rabbis, they were very straight to the point. They didn't fool around with language. They would just go to the point.
They were succinct.
I guess, yeah, rabbis have more time to talk. Okay, Alain.
Every human being is endowed with a certain level of intellectual understanding and ability to retain whatever he has learned. The first of our four types mentioned in the Mishnah has a quick, incisive mind. Nevertheless, since his mind is able to rapidly process the information that he learns, he does not leave a lasting impression, and so he quickly forgets what he has learned. The second type has to devote great energy to understand what he is being taught, but once he knows it, he will not quickly forget it. He may be slow to grasp the subject matter, but he is also slow to lose it, which is a positive attribute. The instant and unrelenting effort that he puts into the subject matter makes an indelible impression on his memory, and he retains what he has learned. There is an important lesson to be learned by contrasting these two types, which can be encapsulated by the well-known impression, easy come, easy go. When a person invests energy in order to study Torah, his success is commensurate with his level of diligence, not necessarily with his level of intellect. Any experienced teacher can verify the fact that it is not necessarily the brilliant students who become attached to Torah. Often, is it the average pupils who develop an inseparable bond with Torah study, much more than what many thought was possible. The reason behind this phenomenon is that effort creates love. Ask a yeshiva student which tractate of the Talmud is his favorite. Invariably, he will say that it is one which he exerts great effort to learn and understand. He schwitzed, literally schwitzed.
Schwitz. Do you know what schwitz is?
No.
It's a Yiddish word.
Perspiration.
It means to
Okay.
Sweat. Schwitz. You know, when somebody comes the whole day is so wet because of sweat, they say, "You're schwitzing, dude."
But the other meaning for schwitz is somebody spent a day in the schwitz, means he was in the steam bath.
Or I'm going for a schwitz, that means I go to the gym.
No, the steam bath.
No, but it's schwitz. So they got,
No, the old guys, if you talk to the old
what
guys.
usually when
I'm
people
going
go for
schwitz,
exercise.
They're going for steam.
Okay.
Or a schwitz and a schmeiss, which would be the steam bath, and then when they used to take the opium brews.
Okay.
I have to confess that my Yiddish is less than limited.
Okay. Is your mic on? Is it green?
Yes, it's green. It's green. It's green.
Right.
It's written to comprehend is Rabbi Shurim, and he spent many hours reviewing.
Okay. Shirim are the classes that they give, lectures.
Okay.
Like shiur is a lecture, actually.
And he spent many hours reviewing and rewriting them. He studied late into the night to resolve a difficulty in a Tosafot or resolve a contradiction in a statement of the Rambam. This developed within him a great love for that particular mershta, which he will carry with him for the rest of his life. On the other hand, a student endowed with a lightning-quick mind will not always feel the need to exert himself to any great extent. Torah knowledge comes relatively easy for him. This can ultimately be to this disadvantage if he does not devote effort to remain that which he has learned.
Okay.
Rabbi Abraham Yaakov Pam.
So I think sometimes this has happened with every talent that we have, not just memory, with every talent. It's usually talented people get lazy because they get everything easy. And then you have somebody who is not so talented, but he is disciplined. And train, and at the end could be better than the one who started with talent. I've seen it with athletes, tennis players all the time. Sorry?
Even Mozart. Even Mozart, he was highly gifted, and yet,
he blew it because the kind of lifestyle. He said, yeah, I have everything that I need, Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so talent, somebody explained to me that talent is like an escalator. When you go to the shopping center, to the mall, and you take the escalator, you don't have to make any effort, you go up. But if you take the stairs, but you run your way up, you're going to beat the escalator. You're going to be Auschwitz, Yiddish. At the end, for your effort, but you're still going to come up to the top before the other one who's not doing anything with it, getting it easy to the top. So it just means that you have to work a little harder. Yeah, and at the same time you are exercising your body and you have all of the benefits.
Exercising this muscle.
Yeah. The memory you have to exercise. That's what it is. So it's not just about what you have naturally to remember, to study, but we have to make the effort to do it properly. One of the things that the rabbis will say that is very important is the review of the material. Review it all the time. That's the best way to remember. It's coming in the next text, so let's keep reading. Text 23. Who is reading? John, please.
True geniuses are usually blessed with the vain traits of a very quick mind that rapidly grasps what is being taught or read, and a strong retentive memory. Such combination of traits is usually a blessed gift from the Creator. When a person has one of these two gifts but not the other one, the negative aspect of the missing skill is mitigated by the other skill. The question left unanswered by the Mishnah is whether either of these traits can be acquired or developed, or is it all a matter of genetic structure? In the yeshiva world, it has long been axiomatic that diligence in study, true mental effort, intense focus and concentration on the Torah knowledge to the exclusion of all else will eventually allow one to rise to Torah scholarship and even greatness. There is no doubt that effort, constant review of the subject matter, and the required experience in good study methods and habits certainly play a vital role in the development of intellect and the acquisition of knowledge. Diligence is worth many points on
IQ scale.
Diligence is worth many points on the IQ scale. In combination with a naturally quick mind and good memory, the above traits of diligence and good study habits are the basis for the achievements of the great Torah scholars. But the honor roll of scholars is well peppered with diligent students who far surpassed expectations. The reason why some are gifted and others are subpar intellectually is a mystery that is beyond our ability to understand. Only God understands why He apportions intellectual abilities as He does. It is axiomatic, however, that He expects people to utilize whatever capacity He has given them. In the expression of the sages, the Holy One, blessed is He, counts not pages but hours. He expects no more than one is capable of giving, nor does He expect less. What should be clear is that different methods and order of curriculum are necessary for different types of students. In education and schools, in spite of all the protestations to the contrary, one size does not fit all. Rabbi Berel Wein.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very, very interesting what he has to say. And yeah, God expects to do, you have to do your best when what you have. That's our mission. That's our mission. And the thing is, sometimes when people say, no, I cannot do that because I'm not talented. Well, the answer is, if you're on your right path, you are talented enough to do what you're supposed to do. Sometimes you don't need to be super talented to be super effective. Yeah, Moses was a lousy speaker, right? Terrible father, and he was still a great leader.
But he knew how to delegate. He knew what his strengths and weaknesses are.
Yitro had to teach him.
Well, that's true.
His father-in-law has to teach him how to delegate. The guy was burning himself out. Remember when Yitro said,
it's true.
What are you doing? But he was open to learn. Sometimes that's one of the, it is a talent by itself to learn and to change based on what you learn. Delegation is also great. I remember this guy was the president in Chile when I moved there in 1994. He wasn't very talented. It was nowadays, but he had one great talent. He knew how to delegate. He was a mastermind picking ministers. The guy was a genius just by detecting talent.
That's the key.
And convincing the person to work for the government. You know what he will do? He will say, you are the economy minister, you're defense minister, go do your job, and he will be hands off. And then he will say, you are a minister of development, right? Go do your thing. Then the president will go and he will cut the ribbon. He'll take the photos. He will smile to the camera. But he was great at letting people do. When his term ended, the next one, everybody voted for him because he was such a brilliant guy. He was a terrible president because he was a micromanager. And his minister will be very unhappy and they will quit. While the other one, he will detect the talent, say, do what you know, do it your way. And he made tremendous changes to telecommunication because with novel ideas that other guys said, no, I don't know, do it. This minister that he appointed created this amazing method that to finish with the monopoly of the telecoms, before if you have to call long distance, it will be so expensive that you will have to literally have to call somebody with a watch next to you to be sure how much money you want to spend on the phone call.
We used to do that.
You have to budget the time.
We used to do that.
Crazy. So they made this change, and from now on, they accepted as many telecoms all you want. So they made a lottery, and they assigned to every company a 3-digit code. They will have to advertise their rates, right? And then every day, you go to the newspaper, you read the rates, you said, oh, today I like this one, VTR. is 50 cents cheaper than the other one. What is the code? The code is 133. Got the phone? 133 and then the long distance number. And it will be routed there.
Yes.
That came out of a president who knew nothing about telecommunication, but he didn't pretend that he knew. He got a guy who was brilliant. Do it.
He recognized the talent.
Yeah, but it was a
others.
talent by itself. he
Oh.
was a talentless person whose talent was to let other talents shine.
That in itself is remarkable.
You have to take the advice of the experts if you appoint them. I mean, like Trump, apparently, he's had some good people in his cabinet, but like the minister of...
But he's a micromanager.
But
He's breathing on their necks all the time. Who can work like that? So, yeah.
Do we know if Rabbi Beryl Ween is still alive?
Oh, yeah. Very prolific. Very prolific.
Where does he live?
United States, I believe. Okay, text 24. Oh, I love this one. Eddie, you have the microphone? 24, please.
memory has been compared to a kerchief. If it is folded over and over again, it eventually develops creases and can be folded neatly and easily along them. Similarly, even someone who was born with a weak memory can, by means of incessant review and self-discipline, organize and strengthen his memory so that everything he learns falls into place in his mind. Rabbi Menachem Friedman of Itzgan, Romania.
So you can actually create your mind palace. It's a technique that you can learn. In these days, actually, was scientifically studied how to improve the memory. It could be studied how to create this mind palace. You have to imagine a big palace, and then you put things in different rooms and different compartments. But you need discipline to learn it. But once you learn it, you can use it. It's useful for speakers, or some people use it to study in university. It's kind of awesome. Okay, one more text. Text 25. Shelley, you want to read?
Rabbi Dostal Bar Yohanai, in the name of Rabbi Meir, says, anyone who forgets one thing from his studies, Scripture considers him as if he is liable for forfeiture of his life, as it is said in Deuteronomy 4:9. Only guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes saw. One could suppose this statement applies to even one whose studies have overpowered him. Therefore, the verse says, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life, it is not liable for forfeiture of his life until he sits down and intentionally removes them from his heart.
Okay?
Ooh.
So the important thing with this, it seems to imply that we have the obligation to remember everything. And when it's talking about remember when your eyes, the things that which your eyes saw in the context of Deuteronomy is talking about Revelation and all the miracles that happened in the desert. But because the Torah is talking to every generation, I believe that with the mission, that this Mishnah is saying that we have to be careful, not just to not forget the Torah we study, but all the experiences that we have in our lives. Every experience, everything that you went through, good things and bad things, they have a teaching. They have something to teach you. And if you forget that, you're harming yourself. Especially if you believe that things happen to you because God makes them happen, so you can learn something out of that. So it's very important for you to remember. Otherwise, you're going to stumble with the same rock again. Why do we make the same mistake again and again and again? Because we forget the lesson. As simple as that. So that's, I guess, what sometimes is said, you're liable for your life if you forget what you learn. Because you might be forgetting vital information that is crucial to keep you alive. Yeah, because people forget. And in Judaism, we always say, not just remember. Actually, the Torah uses two words. Zachor, al tishkach. Zachor means remember. Al tishkach means don't forget. When we read that in the Torah, I always share with the congregation my experience with my wife when she said to me, before you come home, remember to buy milk. Don't forget.
That's right.
And then I don't bring the milk. I said, I told you to remember. Yes, but what did you say after? Don't forget. So what was the last word you told me?
Forget.
That's what I did.
Rabbi,
I always I always follow your last opinion.
Rabbi, it says here all the days of your life. In the Haggadah, we talk about your heart in all the days of your life. Is that the same kind of
What do you mean?
meaning, all the days of your life?
All days of your life means all your life. This is not something you have to remember
It's not negotiable.
when you're active.
Okay. Bless you.
Intentionally. Yeah. If you have an illness or something that you're not allowed, you're forgetting, you're not committing a sin. That's what it means. Okay, so who was Rabbi Dostai? Rabbi Dostai was a 5th generation Tana. This and his only quoted halachic statement on Eruvin 5:4 are both reported in the name of Rabbi Meir, which would seem to indicate that Rabbi Meir was his primary teacher. Okay? He's always quoting things from Rabbi Meir. So that could mean that Rabbi Meir was his teacher, or sometimes it means that it was his father's teacher. But his father taught him, but his father told him, he said, because this is what I learned from Rabbi Meir. So in that case, you will say, you're also quoting from Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Meir was either his teacher or his father's teacher. That's it.
Do the Talmudic scholars, the Torah scholars, have any rules or guidelines as to what materials it's important to really memorize and which materials it's okay just to read casually? Because if one tries to memorize everything, the amount of the learning, the amount of materials will cover will necessarily be very limited indeed. I remember even as an undergraduate, at the United College University of Winnipeg, they try to teach us that, certain things you have to, remember other things.
No, the rabbis will say you have to remember every single thing you study in the yeshiva, everything. And that's why even some of Orthodox people, they won't exercise or they won't do any kind of entertainment things because they believe that they are neglecting their studies. Every second that you could be studying Torah but you are not, it's a waste of time. Because everything is important. Everything. Maybe if you decide, I won't go to yeshiva today, maybe you miss that lecture that could have the potential to change you. Everything is important. That's what it is. Every piece of information that comes your way, you should remember.
But realistically, that's not possible, unless we have a very, very limited amount of information.
Well, in those days, they have these people that, even today, that they memorize the entire Talmud and other rabbinic books. There are contests in Israel of memorization of sacred books that kids participate. And they have completely memorized Talmud, the whole Talmud.
But memorizing word for word does not mean understanding.
Maybe, but it implies, in this kind of contest, for people that I saw, it implies some kind of level of understanding. And then, of course, you have your entire life to keep kneading the dough.
I mean, I can understand, maybe, because I'm not a Rav, but I can understand over many years or decades someone having an encyclopedic knowledge of something and being able, because of a prodigious memory or repetition, going back and referring and saying, quoting huge tractates. But what is to be gained by just memorizing?
Memorizing
Is it memorizing for the sake of memorizing, or
No,
memorizing for the sake
memorizing
of knowledge and
for
understanding?
knowledge and understanding, because when you need it, you have it. I don't know the Talmud. I don't memorize the Talmud. So when I need to find something in the Talmud, it will take me a day on special search engines and cross-references until I find what I need. These people, beep.
I agree with you.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but it's a good beginning.
There are people who could memorize all a book, Homer, Odysseus. You could remember all this in Greek.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily understand
Yeah, maybe.
the subtlety of the text and what Homer
Yes. Okay, they don't, maybe not, but in the
It's
in the
like
yeshiva world,
memorizing
in the rabbinic world, it's memorizing for the sake of understanding. Now, there were some people, and they still are, in some Orthodox synagogues, these memory experts that they go on Shabbat and they listen to a lecture of a rabbi, because on Shabbat they don't record, they don't write, and after Shabbat they transcribe the entire lecture word by word. They're necessary. That's what they do. They used to do it for the Lubavitch Rebbe, and these people that they would do it, and they will repeat the entire lecture, hour-long lecture, word by word after Shabbat.
Okay, you're going to get mad at me now, because here I go with the anthropologist in me again. In pre-literate times, that's what
The only
we
way.
used to call oral history, where it would be repeated over and over again to specific people who would then repeat it, and that became generational. And so it's well known in documented times how absolutely historically accurate these repeated stories are.
And in the Talmud was designed in a way that not two pages are the same. Not two pages have the same layout. So if you have photographic memory, you can remember every page, because every page is different to the other. But at the same time, when you study Talmud, you sing it. So if your memory works by listening,
So it's the auditory memory as well as the visual memory?
yes, and they move. So there's a kinetic component as well.
Yeah.
And then when the rabbis will start doing like this with the finger, so then you remember that it's an important point. So there's a combination of sound, movement, and graphics. Yep. But Rabbi tried people to memorize what they did. So let's keep reading. Text 27. Meredith will read. Constant review.
Okay, number 27.
Yes.
Constant review is the key to retaining one's knowledge. The Mishnah issues such a harsh indictment on one who forgets due to lack of review. One is obligated to review his studies regularly in order to minimize the natural process of forgetting. Negligence, indifference, or laziness are not acceptable reasons for forgetfulness, because they are the fault of the student, not out of his control. Since all areas of Torah knowledge are interconnected, forgetting even one bit of Torah knowledge is a tragedy of colossal proportions.
And that's your answer, Seth.
Midrash.
Eddie, that's your answer. Everything is equally important, because you never know when you're going to need it and how you're going to need it.
Yeah.
That's the...
Conservative and Reform Yeshivot,
Let's pass you the microphone.
Do conservative and reform and maybe modern Orthodox yeshivot emphasize all this memory and reviewing the same material, or are they more inclined to say some of your time should be more expansive reading, read philosophy about religion, read...
Yeah, we do believe in expanding our knowledge, but I wouldn't be, I guess, I don't know. It's not fair to say that they don't put the same emphasis on their studies as the Orthodox. I don't want to say that. I think that's a generalization. To say a statement like that, oh, I don't know. Okay, it's a 28. Due to lack of review, one may inadvertently issue an incorrect ruling which will cause others to sin. Even though this is unintentional, he bears guilt for his soul, since he could have prevented it by reviewing. Yeah, that's very important. No, but this is intentional in the sense that you had the opportunity to review, and then you're ruling without all the pieces. Or at least you have to be humble to say, when you don't know something, I don't know it. Yes.
In other words, basically it's suggesting that if you make, it's arguing against making a snap judgment.
Yes. Let's jump to text 30.
Okay.
If you want to read,
I'll do that.
text 30.
A disciple once A disciple once asked the Chedushi Harim for advice on how to remember his Torah studies. The Rabbi asked him in return, "Did you ever forget how to eat? Did you ever put a spoonful of food in your ear instead of in your mouth?" "No." "Why not?" "Because your life depends on eating, and no one can forget an essential life process." Similarly, when a person comes to the realization that Torah is actually keeping him alive, he never forgets a word of his life-giving studies. Thus David said, "I will never forget your orders, for with them you keep me alive." Psalms 119-93. In a mystical sense, one's Torah insights are an expression of how the Word of God filters through his soul. One who develops a new idea in Torah gives expression and life to his own soul. Hence, if he forgets anything of his own Torah learning, he is deemed guilty for his own soul, for he has extinguished one of its sparks. Rabbi Yehuda Greenlander.
Okay? Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the 31 is talking about when sometimes you need to forget. This is also Rabbi Beryl Wayne, and he said, "Forgetting is a heavenly gift. If we were unable to forget life's moments of pain and embarrassment, the time of failure and grief, if our conscious will did not sublimate them into the dark regions of our subconscious mind, then we would be unable to live in any sort of normal fashion. Thus, the sages speak of forgetting as a gift from heaven, but like all such gifts, human can use it for the good, but they can abuse it." And a perfect example of that is text 32, which we are going to finish. So who wants to read this one? This is wonderful. Text 32. All right. It's a beautiful finishing, this one. It's kind of it has also a little bit of humor.
The Maggid of Dubono, Rabbi Yaakov Krantz, typically illustrates this idea with a parable. Once someone borrowed a great deal of money to invest in a new enterprise. His business failed and he was unable to meet his creditors' demands for repayment of the loans. Desperate for relief from the incessant hounding of his creditors, he turned to a good friend for advice as to how to cope with his situation. The friend who had also lent him money advised him to pretend that he was insane and the creditors would soon stop bothering him. Realizing that they had no chance to collect from the crazy man, the beleaguered debtor took his advice and began behaving like a lunatic, speaking nonsense, drooling and rolling on the floor. The word got out that he had gone mad, and the creditors stopped knocking on at his door. This respite allowed him to concentrate on restoring his business fortunes and to stand on his feet again.
It continues in the next page.
His friend and his advisor now came to the debtor to ask for his payment. The man immediately began to roll on the floor and pretend he was insane. The advisor shouted at him, "Don't use that trick on me. I'm the one who gave you this advice." So too said the Maggid of Dubano, "God is the one who gave us the ability to forget. How dare a man use that ability to forget God? The power to forget must be used sparingly and properly. To forget one's obligations to God and man is an abuse of that gift."
Off the bottom. Yes. Hey, great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everybody online. And hope to see you again in 2 weeks. It's a plan. Good night. You're welcome. Let me shut the... Is it? Okay. I will send